welcome to this LinkedIn Live. My name is Christopher, and today I have a very exciting session for you. We're going to talk about how to build a topical map. And for this presentation, I brought in an expert in topical maps, so I really hope that the next hour will be as exciting for you as it will be for me. And let me start by introducing my guest for today. Hello, Germans.
Hello.
How's it going? Are you ready for this?
Very much ready, and hopefully as ready as the audience is.
Perfect. I saw your 7-hour session on topical maps the other day. By the way, thanks for the shout out. I think it's in the hour 2 you mentioned the customer journey mapping, so that was kind of you.
Of course, very happy to give credit wherever that is due. But did you manage to watch it in full, or are you still like going back to
No,
it?
I didn't manage it in full, and that's also why I did this session instead, because this is going to be a light version of what you taught the rest of the attendees the last time. So I said, okay, let's see if we can do 1 hour of topical actually the steps, and hopefully at the end everybody is more able to build a topical map, and I guess also understanding what a topical map is, right? Because that's also part of what we're going through today. One thing, Germans, you made 45 slides, and if somebody is interested in having these slides, just write yes in the chat, and we will send them afterwards. So let me just add the slides just to set them up here. 1 second. Hope that it works. Great. Then we have them here. So Germans, you will be the guy walking us through the whole agenda. I will be the one going from slide to slide, so you just say next when I need to do that. But it's been a long time since I actually wanted to do this session with you. To tell you the truth, I didn't feel so prepared before, because as you will also explain, this is you can say this is Corai's framework. You have to really be part of the holistic SEO community to understand this way of working. And now I've been through the 90 videos, the 7-8 hours of training, so I feel a little bit more capable of talking about this topic. So I waited until now, but maybe we will of course discuss more about this in the next 1 hour here. So James, before you do a presentation of yourself, I think you should walk us through the agenda that you would like everybody to learn about.
Yep, sure. So I tried to kind of like summarize the main steps of the topical map creation into these 10, and today we'll run through all of them. Run through because each and one of them will actually require a little bit more explanation, but we'll do it in a concise manner. So we'll talk about the source context, the central entity, the central search intent, core and outer section, how to create a raw topical map, and some ideas on how to do a research topic for raw topical map creation. Also discuss SERP analysis, topic filtration, reordering, the components that go into the process topical map, and lastly, publication frequency, which is kind of the primary driver for momentum.
Great stuff. And I'm sure that even if you work with topical maps today, you will get some new aha moments about this. And if you're not working with topical maps, this is for sure. Of course, this but at the same time, I think they're probably take into an existing framework that you're working with today.
Yeah, so as Christopher already mentioned, my name is Germans Frolovs. No, I'm not from Germany. I am born and raised in Latvia and currently living in Denmark, working as a digital marketing manager at Simper QMS, and have a big passion for SEO. I'm also organizing or helping organize Copenhagen SEO meetups. And as the basically presentation is all about topical authority semantic SEO, that's what I have been recently loving a lot for the last 2 years when it comes to SEO.
Yeah, I think we got to know each other like maybe 2 years ago, because that's when you started with. When did you start with the Copenhagen SEO meetup?
About 2 years ago. Yeah, this time 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I think I was invited as a speaker, and I had to leave in the 11th hour. But I came back strongly this year and presented at the last SEO meetup. Yeah. And then we've met a couple of times at different conferences, both here in Denmark, in Poland, and we've met for coffee in Copenhagen as well. So we got to know each other quite a lot over the last years.
For sure, and great pleasure. It's actually the first time in the Copenhagen SEO meetup where I got introduced to you as the GOAT of SEO in Denmark, and now you're here having a common discussion. So that's also very, very nice to see over time.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I haven't heard this term before. I'm sure some people will disagree,
and things like that.
but thanks a lot.
Yeah. And actually, the whole presentation, before we start, I want to give full attribution and many thanks to Koray, who is the CEO and founder of Holistic SEO Digital and the creator of the course, Semantic SEO for Topical Authority. You can go to the next slide, which is also the main inspiration behind the whole presentation. So the primary source is the course, as well as many of the conferences and presentations that Koray did over the last 2 years, including SEO Mastery Summit in Vietnam, Saigon, Search Birmingham, SEO Estonia, SEO Vibespot in Budapest, and also in Poland, where we met and with Christopher also, where he was presenting customer journey mapping last time in May this year. Also Sofia SERP conference, and also Chiang Mai SEO conference. So all of these are kind of like tidbits from all of these presentations in the course. I kind of like summed up some of the key points when it comes to topical maps into this presentation as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting because every Koray presentation, I saw him in Dubai, he was in Denmark online, in Zakopane, Poland. Every presentation is a piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, it's a story you have to follow.
It's completing one another, exactly. It's never the same.
Exactly. No, but it's also like the continuation of the last talk. It seems like there's a big master plan. So, great. I met Koray the first time in Zakopane, and I remember we were lining up to enter the stage, all the speakers, and he had a band-aid on his finger, and he was like, "I met a black hat." He was joking. So that was quite funny. He's got a good sense of humor. Good sense of humor.
Yeah, and actually, after going through the course, after it was launched in May 2023, I went through it, I think, 3 to 4 times, and then asked Koray permission. Hey, can I talk about this? Because I think more people need to know this stuff. And had the pleasure to also present Introduction to Topical Authority and Semantic SEO according to Koray's framework back in January 18th this year in one of the Copenhagen SEO meetups. And also you can go to the next slide. Yes, and here also in the last 13 months, I kind of like did many trips around the world following basically Koray and his presentations and his speeches, both in Sofia and Budapest, as well as in Poland this year. And also this year, well, the recent one was in Kusadasi in Turkey, the private mastermind, where he invited individual people to join. And that event was full of it. Great people, very smart people, and very successful people, including also Erfan, who is also in the comments here. You can see the guy behind the Google API leak, kind of.
That was also a super interesting talk with Koray that he had. So yeah, it must have been a very intense experience. It was it 1 week, right? As this mastermind.
It was 5 days, and it like we had a breakfast. We started talking at 9-10 a.m. and then we did not stop until honestly 2 a.m. in the morning. And then the next day started again with a specific topic in mind, and many discussions throughout the whole day.
Excellent. All right, but let's get started. Germans, the terminology.
Yep.
That's a big area of this.
Exactly. I want to give a quick disclaimer about that terminology. That actually that, as you will see throughout the presentation, there are many uncommon terms, and especially for people who never kind of went through a case study of core eyes or maybe watch these videos, it's going to be hard to understand, especially when compared to traditional SEO. But you have to understand that these terms within the semantic SEO framework for topical authority are primarily derived from Google search engine and other search engine patents and research papers, as well as with an addition of core eyes own, let's say, terminology to kind of better conceptualize the whole framework. And many of these things like query template, document template, passage ranking, information retrieval zones and fields, among many other things, are actually terms that search engine engineers are using within their patents. And Gore, I read thousands of them to come up with this framework. But throughout this presentation, of course, I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. And maybe I think the best way to start with the topical map creation is to kind of clarify what it is not first and what it is thereafter. So a topical map is not just a list of target keywords, a list of target concepts, entities, or topics. And it's indeed not a 10-page content plan. I think that was also how Christopher summarized it. It's definitely not that thing, but what topical map is, it is, let's say, a structured network of interconnected topics within a specific field, all organized by semantic relevance and user behavior. Also, you can say that it is based on semantic principles to communicate more effectively with search engines, merging the search language with the language that we speak as humans. And also the whole premise, or what it aims to achieve, is to reduce the cost of retrieval by improving information retrieval scores through relevance and responsiveness configuration. Also, sometimes a topic can be covered in a single page, sometimes multiple topics can be covered on a single page, sometimes a single topic with multiple contexts can be covered on multiple pages, and definitely one website can have multiple topical maps as long as they're connected in a meaningful way.
And you said something interesting here also, because I think that many people come from, they're not doing topical maps. They maybe think that they're doing topical maps, but I would say, if you should be kind, it would probably be a very topical map light, that they only look into a very small fraction of what we actually talk about as a topical map. Now, you mentioned this thing about the economy of Google, the crawl economy of Google. I think this is also something which is quite central to Core Eyes learnings regarding, how much should it actually cost Google to crawl for the right information. Could you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, the cost of retrieval is the inspiration behind the whole framework, according to Core Eye, and it's not just the cost of crawling. It's cost of crawling, the page speed, how heavy the page is, but also understanding the content sentence by sentence and then ranking that. So the cost of retrieval, involves a lot of things, not just technical aspects, but the whole understanding of the content as well.
Yeah. All right. So we got that covered.
And for me, actually, I think the biggest difference in how topical map differs according to traditional, let's say, keyword research, is that topics within a topical map are all interconnected, well ordered and organized, and highly dependent on the business type. Depending on a business, the same topic, the same, let's say, list of topics or concepts are going to be very much different. If it's a SaaS, certain attributes are going to be prioritized. If it's a local business or like an e-commerce, again, different things can be prioritized, and topical map is going to shift drastically.
Yeah. So when you see a topical map generator out there, some online tool, what do you think?
I think nice tool for ideation, but if it doesn't have the business context, if it doesn't have maybe search data, and if it doesn't look at every individual index to evaluate whether it's worth opening a page or not, and if it doesn't consider budget, then it's not probably a useful tool. And at the moment, I don't think there is a tool created that could do all of these things in a proper way.
Excellent. Great. So this slide, Germans, I think that's where we start, right? It has to be highly dependent on the business, as you say, whether it's a SaaS or local company or wherever. It can be so different the topical maps depending on what kind of business you're in.
Absolutely. If the entity is the same but the business is different, topical map is going to be different. That's just how it is. Different things are going to be prioritized in that. And in our presentation also, we'll run through the process of creating a topical map for actually your website, Christopher, danishwines.com. And
let's just, because we thought, okay, this can be, I mean, talking about topical maps can be really abstract. I also saw somebody here saying, I hope, Germans, that you make a topical map, because you didn't do that in the 7-hour session. So instead of this being too abstract, we're gonna try to connect it with the danishwine.com website, which is a side hustle of mine. For us to try to understand, how can you build a topical map. So that's going to be the starting point. Just a quick intro to the website. It's of course it's a web shop which sells where we sell wine from Danish vineyards.
And when it comes to creation of topical map, I think the first kind of like groundwork that you always have to do is research your ICP, ideal customer profile, and buyer personas. Understand your audience, and especially if you're in B2B space, then you need to understand your ICP, and then also identify the demographic characteristics, psychographic, behavioral characteristics to better understand your potential users and develop those buyer personas. After that, also, I think just general research of the topic is very important, of course, especially if you're not an expert in that topic already. And here I just included a quick prompt that you can maybe use, listing step by step, put your topic, and then ask ChatGPT to develop ontology for main concepts and entities, model taxonomy, properties, and connections. So all of this is a single prompt, and just by using that, you'll already get a good understanding about the main things within that subject matter, let's say.
And was there something here which I don't know if you remember exactly, but was there something here which surprised you regarding Danish wine and the connections?
Actually, it's a pretty simple topic, I think, to understand, but maybe some things that I haven't even considered without using this prompt would be how even individual meronyms, we'll talk about like psilosemantics in a bit, are important when it comes to creating a wine, grapes, fruits, and other components of that. I haven't really considered that, but after also, doing a little bit of digging, those things kind of like popped up, and then I decided to include also in the topical map ideation process.
Yeah, so you would say that this kind of prompts is a great way just to really get a structure, get an idea of the structure, have it as an ideation as well, in order to understand what are the different topics surrounding the business area.
Absolutely, yeah. And the first step when it comes to creating a topical map is to identify the source context, and the source context represents the purpose of the brand. Why is it needed in the SERP? How the brand monetizes its content and turns search engine users into customers and clients. You have to really ask yourself, why are you covering this topic? What is the purpose of you being on the SERP? And you really have to justify the reason for why you should be in the SERP, why your website should be there. And in our case, with danishwines.com, it's very simple. It is a kind of a business, right? And the example of this would be that source context. Well, in our example, would be Danish wine e-commerce store. No questions asked. It's pretty straightforward here.
Yeah, and of course, it is a great question, because sometimes a business is actually, selling ads is like the source context of the business, right? If it's a news site or something like that, but I think it's just a very basic question to ask yourself. What is the idea behind it all?
Exactly, and it's very much easier when you have a true business, right? If you're just getting the traffic and putting ads on that, you're not really a business per se. And unless you have like extraordinary, much more unique content, and you are providing and solving the needs for the user, it's going to be very hard to compete nowadays. You need to have a business and purpose to be on the SERP. But after that is clarified, the next step is to identify the central entity. But maybe first we could define what an entity is before diving into the central entity. So an entity refers to a distinct and well-defined concept, object, or subject that can be uniquely identified and is often associated with a specific term or phrase, right? And examples could be people, places, organizations, events, products, even abstract concepts. And the central entity in this case defines what the website is mainly about. It could be also site-wide, but also it could be segment-wide under a specific subfolder. For example, if you have multiple topical maps in your website. And in our example, Danish wine is quite a well-defined entity. It also has a Wikipedia page for that, which is another sign that this is an entity.
And this is, of course, also a reminder, James, about any page on the website should actually include the terminology, right? Or should include Danish wine as part of the as part of a phrase, right?
Exactly. It would be apparent, like basically on every page you would see that phrase somewhere, which is, we'll come back to n-gram analysis when it comes to competitor research. And that's another sign that with n-grams, you can actually see what is the central entity when analyzing competitors. It's a hint. But when you do an n-gram analysis on your website, definitely you should see that entity appearing everywhere. The next step would be to identify the central search intent. And that is the unification of the previous two, of the source context and the central entity. The central search intent represents the core, let's say, user group's intent and the main action that they would like to do on the website. And the identification of the central search intent focuses on the augmentation of the verbs and predicates and combination with the nouns. And in our example would be to learn about and also to buy Danish wine. Specifically, buy is the most important, right? Focus there.
Yeah, but also I think you have to be a little bit wary here as well, because your product doesn't necessarily mean that the central search intent is for your product, but it could be something. It could be something, a need that the user has, which actually is converted to your product at some point, right? I mean, I think Cora has an example about a visa to Germany, right? As an example of where the central search intent is different than the product.
Exactly. And in Visa example, was it know and go? And go is the primary kind of like intent, very close to the core section, which we'll talk about next. But also an example would be in one other case study, email, let's say, mail merge solution. There, the intent was to optimize as well, optimize emails, and that is another strong, let's say, predicate that was where topical map was kind of optimized around as well.
Okay, great. So I actually, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I actually see these first 3 steps as just something you do. That's like the first part, right? I mean, that's just like understanding what is it that we're selling, and what is it that the user is searching for in order for us to sell this. Like really trying to understand this as just the foundation of anything else.
Absolutely. And I mean, without this foundation, the rest is going to fall apart. So having a very clear understanding about these 3 and especially the next 2 components is crucial. Which, number 4, it would be to determine the core section. The core section is the unification of the source context and the central search intent. The core section focuses on the main attribute of the central entity. And in our case, the central entity, Danish wine, the main attribute would be types of Danish wine, including red wine, rosé wine, Danish sparkling wine, Danish organic wine, and many others. You are the expert here, Christopher, so you could add many more.
I mean, there's a fortified wine, of course, as well. Like a 15% dessert wine. For instance.
And also, maybe if you're not just selling wine, but maybe you could also offer a subscription service that could also be another, let's say, topic that could be a part of your core section in this case.
So as you say, the core section goes together with the outer section.
And the outer section is kind of like I would not say exactly the opposite, but it's definitely supporting the core section. The outer section of topical map primarily focuses on the minor attributes of the central entity or related entities. And the outer section aims to rank content, improve the historical data, get traffic, get impressions, get clicks, and then support core section through internal links. And most of the ranking signals and most of the highest quality pages are going to be in the core section, while the outer section is going to, let's say, get traffic, impression, and clicks, and pass on those good historical data signals and then query session logs to the core section through internal links. And many times you'll actually see that the pages from the outer section, from the let's say supplementary content area from the bottom of the page, are always linking to the core section articles. And in our case, with the outer section of DanishWines.com, in the outer section, you talk about like Danish wine regions, vineyards, brands and manufacturers, wine tasting events and tours in Denmark, wine pairing guides, storage tips, wine accessories, wine production and harvesting, how it is done, history of the winemaking in Denmark, even different grapes and types of fruits that are used for making wine. So you can see how vast it becomes all of a sudden. Whereas the core section, it's kind of like, I also love the analogy that Pavel Klimikov, another very, very smart semantic SEO expert, gave. It's like an anchor. Core section is an anchor, but you have to go deep, and it must be the most quality. And the outer section, of course, still needs to be quality, but there you can go a little bit wider to support also your core section.
Yeah, and I think if we translate this lightly to what people are already doing, it's more like they have a blog section or an inspirational section. That's typically where you put the outer section, right? But I think that one important point as well here, Jamus, which people can misunderstand, is historical data, right? Because maybe you could just define it so we're sure what we talk about here.
Yeah, it's all about quality search engine user, let's say, sessions, impressions that you get, the clicks that you get, and kind of, all the historical data that Google can see for the website that you have related to the topic that for which you were gaining those clicks. I think amazing example, maybe a little bit inappropriate. In the first speech in Saigon Core, I explained like different types of websites. One is let's say a website with 9 million pages, where almost 99% of the pages are about Bible, and then one page is about let's say pornography, right? And then that one page gets all the clicks, and then basically it would be clustered as that inappropriate website, right? Adult website, not necessarily like a Bible website, because that's what Google has all the data for.
Yeah,
that's the historical data.
And also, of course, historical data doesn't necessarily refer to a timeline of, the more time. It's more about the volume of traffic, right? So that's what's taken into account here. I mean,
yeah, and also I think from the Google leaks, and maybe also Erfan could correct us, that Google stores the last 13 months of data to then use that in terms of the evaluation of the source for the future rankings, demotions, or promotions. And
yeah, so these are okay. So actually, let's summon it up. The 5 first points, that's essential to start any website. And I think also for this outer section, it's great to do this exercise between what is core and what is outer section, because one of the things I've really been working on with this website are the different Danish vineyards. I mean, trying to do a page for every one of them, and there are 120 commercial vineyards in Denmark, so it's it's quite a lot of work. But also trying to understand this is only to build up the authority of the website and the value of my product and on my category pages for Danish wine. So it's also a way to understand that I shouldn't run amok. I shouldn't spend all my time on creating Danish vineyard pages when it's actually not my business here, right? I mean, I have to. This is only supporting content to what I really want to achieve with the site.
And maybe also to add about the historical data impressions, there are quite clear thresholds, and there are patterns that, like, the second website hits a threshold of 10,000 impressions, it starts ranking for many of the, let's say, feature snippets, other rich results, and other features on Google. So getting those and achieving those thresholds, and I think next one, let's say, would be 20, 30, 40, 50,000, is very much helpful to start ranking from higher for other, let's say, feature snippets and so on, and get more clicks over time. So historical data, very important point here.
Yeah, and you definitely have to work. I mean, it's in the outer section typically that the search volume lies. I mean, so it's super important.
And also, maybe to summarize the core and outer section, you could visualize in this way, and again, topics that we just ran through as ideas. For the core section, again, all different types of Danish wines. You could see all of them labeled in green. And in the outer section, everything from Danish wine regions to vineyards to wine accessories, storage tips, and so on, all in the outer section. Here, I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Suresh, who is, in my opinion, one of the smartest technical SEO experts that I know. He helped me also to brainstorm and come up with this visualization here.
Super nice. I'm going to copy it for my site.
We're doing it all for you, Christopher, here. you can take it home and create a topical map after this recording.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what you're here for, James, just to give me inspiration for my site.
I'll send you an invoice afterwards.
But I mean, this is great. I mean, these are of course also topics that I do cover today. But again, it's only like fractions of this. The wine pairings, for instance, is definitely an area. Of course, as I said before, the Danish vineyards, also the Danish wine regions. I ranked number 1 for all the different the 4 regions in Denmark: Bornholm, Zealand, Fyn, and Jutland. So that was actually quite easy to get. One thing which I'm actually currently thinking about, which could also be a way, which also could be part of the outer section, is actually that when my ICP, my target group, is like typically men from 40 plus and up, they're actually they're getting ill from drinking these heavy Italian red wines because there's a very high what's it called, tannin content.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that the Danish wine doesn't have. So this could definitely also be an area that I was talking into, actually, the whole thing about health and wine, but also about this issue that people are in that age group are facing.
Good point. That's where the expertise comes in, that not all SEOs, let's say, have fun creating topical maps.
Great. And I think, everybody can actually use this model for their own website to get a great overview of, how should we actually structure the site and make sure that we're both getting the core and the outer section, and we make sure to separate them as well.
And we just brainstormed a little bit, but there are so many other ways to generate this raw topical map, and a raw topical map meaning a list of entity plus attribute. So just topics, let's say. You can, of course, we'll quickly run through them in a second, but here's an overview of number 1 would be, of course, always use your brain. If you are an expert in the field, that's always helpful. So I'm a big fan of just brainstorming in the beginning. Then analyzing the SERP, analyzing Wikipedia, Wikidata, Wikigraph, using lexical semantics, analyzing competitors, analyzing your own Google Search Console data if you have it, following token insertion methodology, basically distributing probable words before, after, and in between the central entity, trying to find a database if that is applicable to your topic. If you have a database, that's very helpful, and play a game. I'll explain in a second what that is as well. So maybe we could just go through them all. I mean, user bane, it's self-explanatory. We already covered that. So next, it would be...
Is that you, Germans?
It's me when I'm very, very focused, yes.
It's not about your brains and muscles, right? It's like you do SEO and you do physical training.
You have to train both. About analyzing the SERP. SERP already, or search engine results page, in full form. It gives you a lot of hints, its components and features, including other search engines like Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo in your research is helpful. So looking at the search suggestions, so autocomplete, related searches, people also ask boxes, refinement tabs like search refinement tabs, but also image refinement tabs. There are also other refinement tabs under other verticals of search like video forums and so on. Knowledge panels, things to know sections, and many others. There's so many hints.
Yeah. So maybe could you give an example from your own world where you actually, when you look into this, what do you extract from it regarding, how should I structure the website, or how should I create the templates for my content? Could you give some examples of this?
Actually, for example, like in autocomplete, it will give you already a list of topics that you probably would deserve a dedicated page. Just maybe you'll have to do a little bit deeper analysis, but all of these are ideas. Maybe these contexts deserve a page, or maybe they have to be covered on a single page. Then related searches, again, go to the bottom, you will see related searches, and probably, Google already will say that, hey, towards this topic, this is relevant. And if you click on that, you'll see a separate index. That means that you'll have to create a page for that as well. PAAs, people also ask, again, same story, refinement, again, the same, like if you see different ideas for topics, and if you see different search index for that, you'll have to create a page for that to become a topical authority. So all these elements basically give you already a list of topics that you could cover in your topical map.
Okay, great.
I also would suggest analyzing Wikipedia, Wikidata, Wikigraph on Wikipedia, looking at sections like table of contents, the body content, just reading it to understand what we're talking about here. Internal links, again, they're linking out to other relevant entities. Categories and taxonomy of the Wikipedia page and Wikidata pages, again, are super helpful. And then even the reference section could also be helpful. I like to also use Wikigraph. It's a graph client for Wikipedia. To kind of visualize it. It will visualize other related pages to Wikipedia page that you are searching for, and will give you like a mind map or like visualization of these connections. And all the links are included in the presentation, so you don't need to search for these tools. It's all provided there.
That's super. I mean, I didn't know about the Wikigraph, but this is actually what you're showing here is actually a visualization of it's Danish wine in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And all the pages which are connected.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I will look into that afterwards. Seems very interesting.
And using lexical semantics, lexical semantics focus on the meaning of words and their relationships. For example, hypernyms, meronyms, holonyms, antonyms, synonyms, and many other nyms there are, but these 6 I think are the most helpful when it comes to topical map creation. For example, wine, alcoholic beverage, and so on are hypernyms, or kind of like a general terms that include a specific term of Danish wine. Danish red wine, Danish white wine, sparkling wine, rosé wine, and many others are all hyponyms of Danish wine. So hyponym is a specific term that falls under a broader category, such as Danish wine, for example, in this case. Then grapes, wine bottle, cork, and so on are all meronyms of Danish wine. And meronym is representing a part of a whole, in this case, Danish wine. And there are many other names, and you could, again, do a little bit of research. And I also included an article of Bill Slavsky in the notes of this presentation, talking about these kind of like onyms or nyms research that you should do before keyword research. Just by using these relations, you could already, have a really good list of topics that you could cover.
So when I look at meronyms and I say, okay, grapes, I've covered grapes, wine bottle and cork. It's not something that I've covered in my as part of the topical map. But how would you actually suggest that I use this in my content?
I would not always suggest using all the parts of the whole when it comes to meronyms and your, let's say, topic. Some of them could give you hints, and then it's up to you to decide. Honestly speaking, I would probably not cover wine bottle and cork in your example, because you'll already rank for Danish wine and all the related topics without covering those. Budget is also something you should consider, right, when creating a topical map. So going too far also and covering still kind of related, but maybe not so related to your source context topics, I would probably avoid them if budget is up to a limit.
Yeah, and this is something we come back to a little bit later regarding, how should you go about a topical map, right? And so I think let's just save it for a little bit later.
Of course, identifying and analyzing your competitors is important. Analyzing their top pages, their organic keywords, their sitemaps and ngrams. You can use tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush to analyze their top pages and organic keywords. You could also go to their TXT file, robust TXT file, find their sitemap index and analyze sitemaps. And ngram analysis, which is basically, ngram is a collection of n successive items in a text document. You could do ngram analysis of different components of the website, titles, h tags, body content, alt tags, and many others. And again, tools that I would suggest using are in the notes.
And I think just to mention ngrams, if you could explain it to a 5-year-old, it's like the structure of the sentence, right?
Yeah, a collection of these successive items. If it's a 2 gram, 2 words, 3 gram, 3 words, and so on.
Yeah. Okay, excellent.
Analyzing Google Search Console data, if you have it, is helpful. That's it. I think it's quite self-explanatory here. It's the best source of data that you can get, and if you have it, definitely use it.
Yeah.
And also following the token insertion methodology, which would basically mean generating all the probabilities of word distributions. And you can think of token as a word. So what kind of other word you could put before, after, in between Danish wine. And to do this analysis, you could just go to Ahrefs or your favorite keyword research tool. Just put in your central entity and export the whole terms match report, and you'll get hundreds, if not thousands or millions suggestions.
Do you have like a practical example where from one of your projects where you can say, okay, this is actually something I need to include regarding the token insertion?
It's more like for getting all the possible word distributions that you can get, and then it will just help me cover everything and not leave any gaps. If you know exactly your central entity, right? But then again, you're missing out on all the antonyms, synonyms of that entity.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, it could be like Danish sparkling wine. That could be something like.
Yeah, it will show up exactly.
Which I would get into my list here.
Yeah. Also, I was just trying to find a database if you can, and if it's relevant for your topic, then you will already get all the data for topical map creation, right? Or most of it structured in and in a taxonomy as well. That's very helpful. And some datasets or resources they could use are Kaggle, dataset, Google Dataset Search, and data.go. Actually, in my personal project that I will mention at the end, I found a database of exercises, and that's what the outer section of my topical map is. It involves all the exercises, and just coming up with all the different exercises on my own, it would be very time consuming.
Yeah, I'm getting. I have the Danish Association of Wine of Vineyards. I'm using them and their structure and all the knowledge they have, all the paywall knowledge they have, as a big inspiration for what I'm doing.
That's a good point as well, yeah. And lastly, maybe consider it like a game. You can think of it like a game. I also love this analogy given by Pavel Klimakov when he was explaining simplified topical authority concepts. And start with your central entity and then uncover other relevant topic. And then you kind of go layer by layer. You unlock these related topics. That's also how you could go about creating topical map. I wouldn't say one is better than the other, but I like to kind of go through as many of these methods as possible to generate a topical map.
Great. Yeah, I think it's also good fun. And sometimes you actually you when you work on content where you can see, okay, this actually sticks. This is something that Google really likes. Then let's try to unravel this. Let's see if there's more that we can work on in the same area. That's at least that's something what I look into.
And after
So
you
point
have,
seven,
yeah,
Germans, and we have a quarter of 50 minutes left. I mean, of the official program. Will we make it? Will we make through all 10 in time here without
for sure.
stressing? Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. Because also, of course, if somebody is sitting out there and have a question, we can always have time for that at the end.
Yeah, so maybe we could also suggest asking questions right away, and then we could respond to them afterwards as well. Yeah, number step would be to analyze the SERP and maybe consider SERP-based clustering. I was a big proponent of SERP-based clustering before, but now I'm less of a proponent going forward, given that it can mislead you a little bit. But the key is to analyze the SERP and determine whether any given topic actually warrants a page. The goal is to enter the right search indices or indexes to gain attention from them, and then replicate that across all the topics, right? You don't want to open up pages for something that people do not search for. You also want to prioritize something that people search for the most to get that historical data as soon as possible. But if you have to consider surveys clustering, especially if you have thousands of queries to process, then some tools that are listed here could be helpful to use.
Mm-hmm.
And next is it's about filtration, filtering out irrelevant topics, ordering topics according to importance, also according to your source context, ordering related topics closer to each other. And as I mentioned, creating fewer pages, higher quality pages, that's the goal. And again, avoiding creating pages for non-existing queries. That's very important.
Yeah, and when we're talking about creating fewer, it's also something to do what is the frontier of your outer section, right? I mean, where is it that it doesn't make sense for you to go out further, and then instead just doing an article which sums up a bigger part of the outer section, right?
Exactly, and yeah, it's a tough question to ask, and it's again, as I mentioned, like budget is very important, right? And of course, suggestion is always go as wide as possible, as long as you can connect it back to the core section. If you have that relation there, then you can go, and as well as the pocket allows, right, to create all this content and then maintain it.
Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example of the Danish wine project. You know, Danish wine is part of what you can call the cold wine region, right? So it's a UK, Poland, Germany, Sweden, even Norway, and you know, you could start writing about UK wines, Polish wines, etc. But I think the outer frontier for DanishWine.com is writing about cold wine regions in general, right? Like this is like this is the frontier of the outer section, for my part.
Yeah, yeah, and you as an expert will decide that. That's a good example. Yeah, prioritizing that importance even in the outer section as well.
And that's also why I think that when you're doing the initial foundation of, you know, what is important, what is it that we're going to win, that will also make it much easier for you to make good decisions about what is your outer section, right? Because you can easily go crazy creating more and more content, but it's also about, you know, let's stay on the strategy. Let's focus on what's central to our website.
That's why, like, also determining these core things that you want to cover earlier to have this clarity is quite important. If you go unlocking topic after topic, you will probably never end. So to have those boundaries, that's quite important.
Oh, Jevons, I have a question for you here regarding this. This is from Lars. So he says, should I go as far as to delete pages that don't have queries, or is it simply to avoid wasting time in the future creating pages without queries?
I would avoid creating them in the future, definitely, but also deleting them if you see that their pages not getting any impressions, unless you have it for some kind of legal reason. I think you should at least no index or delete them. In all Kora's projects, before implementing topical map, he always tries to delete unnecessary pages, even merging some of the legal pages to one another and just linking to them to specific sections with anchor links. For example, privacy policy with cookie policy, you can easily merge them in one page, right? The goal is to increase the value per page site-wide before publishing the new content network. So definitely deleting if you have no impressions for them.
Yeah, and that's an important argument, and it goes back to when we talk about cost of retrieval. How expensive is it for Google to crawl your website? And I know crawling is only part of the cost, but it's actually what is it that you want to focus on, and when we're going to talk about afterwards about publishing, but it will have less impact when you publish new content if you have a heavy website with lots of pages which don't make sense, right?
Yeah, bunch of pages, low quality pages, and it will take time for Google to analyze and reevaluate your whole website if it has a ton of pages, right? And it learns, but it learns slow, so you make it faster for Google to realize that you're a quality source. Yeah. Step number 9 would be to create a process topical map. So once you have the raw topical map figured out, everything ordered and filtered out, and grouped, then you can start creating title tag, which is definitely going to change once you start creating content briefs. But still, you can kind of give some kind of your best shot here, figuring out what is the URL structure and specifying the URL slug for every given topic that you have specified in your topical map, as well as other elements like featured, image, alt text, and URL, might be publication date, and maybe other columns for organizational, let's say, or administration of the topical map, like who's the author, where is the link to a content brief, the article, and so on. So you can add many other things there, but these are the core elements of a process topical map according to the framework.
Yeah, and everybody who's doing content plans, they probably have the same things in here. I would like to emphasize this thing about publication date, because that can be actually quite important when we want to we want to show Google that something is happening on our website. But will you talk into this later, or should we?
That is the next step. So lastly, determining the publication frequency. Through publication or update frequency, you establish momentum and kind of like signal to Google how active of a source you are. And publication frequency and order of publishing really matters a lot. As a general rule of thumb, starting a new project with at least 20 pages is a suggestion by Cora, but again, it depends on the size of the web source. If it has million URLs already, 20 pages are not going to move the needle. You have to publish more. And you can do a competitor analysis to see how active are your competitors, and there are many tools that analyze sitemaps of your competitors that you could see basically how over a given period of time how active are your competitors, and then your goal is to be more active within that frame of like 2 to 3 weeks, for example, before the next core algorithm update.
Yeah. So actually, we're talking about when you publish big, so you publish several pages at the same time, right?
Yeah. And then you have to continue, ideally continue that momentum.
Yeah. And continue that momentum, it means publish at different times, right? Don't publish at every day at 9 o'clock or every Friday.
Being like patternless.
Yeah, exactly. Being patternless, because then Google has to crawl your website more often to find this content.
Yeah. And then next.
But I would say also that was a huge thing for me to understand this thing about if you really want to, let's just say, change Google's knowledge graph. If you want to become the topical authority for an area, you need to go big on the first publishing. Where probably before I would recommend, let's just get it published. I wouldn't be so much focused on a big first publication date. So that's something I got from this course.
Likewise, and it makes a lot of sense, right? You have to signal to Google, hey, my website has changed now. Come and reevaluate it. It's a significant change for you to come and see whether we are better or not, right? And if you're just drip feeding, it's going to take much longer time to trigger reevaluation and then hopefully positive re-ranking.
Exactly, a big punch and then some jabs instead of just jab all the way. So Anyway, I think that's a good learning, and also for you, Lars, who just asked this question. For your site is smaller, so if you want to own an area, it's really about let's clean up pages which make no sense to Google, and then when you want to go in and win a topical area, you go in big with 10, 20 pages for the first blast.
Exactly. A few other elements that are worth considering: query template, document template, content item brief template. So query template, it's in simple terms, it's a search pattern with order phrases that cover an entity. Document template is a predefined format that is used to organize information on a web page. It signals the purpose of the web page based on different design elements and then layout elements. And content brief template outlines the specific details and guidelines for creating content in a consistent and highly efficient manner. So you might think that, hey, I need to create these hundreds or thousands of pages. How do I do that? Well, query templates, document templates, and content item brief templates are there to help you. An example could be like how to, like is a query template, for example, a very common one. Wikipedia, no, WikiHow, it's a website that uses and abuses that query template. And they have a document template. They have a predefined way of outlining elements on each and every page. For example, the how to is the first, let's say, phrase in the title, followed by ideally H2s and verbs, starting with a verb to describe every step. I'm not sure if they're doing it, but according to semantics, that would be the better way to do it. And then also the content item brief, right, where you specify for the author for each section what to do. Repeat the heading, expand the heading sentence with further instructions, give reasoning for X, Y, and Z, and so on. So all these things are there to help.
Excellent. I think it's a very good way of thinking about, how to create templates, right? I mean, that's because it's really a matter of there are, for your site there could be 2, 3, 4, 5 different templates. I mean, for the Danish vineyards, that's one template. For the pairings with food, that's a different template. With the different product pages or category pages,
yeah,
template, right? So that's it's a way of remembering.
And also, lastly, the vastness, depth, momentum are some other additional concepts that must be considered when creating a topical map. It basically means go wider, go deeper, go faster. Typically, you can decide, or ideally, of course, you want to do all three, but because of some budget constraints and whatnot, you might need to choose between vastness and depth, for example. And in this case, you would need to basically supplement the missing effect of one with another one. And there are also case studies that we'll briefly mention at the end that focus on different elements of such. But having that understanding also of these concepts is also important. Momentum would ideally always be there.
Yeah. And now, Germans, this is slide 36. It's very far in the process. I would actually put up this slide as one of the first ones, because this is also about competitor analysis and understanding what does it take for me as a newcomer, for instance, to beat the other guys. I mean, for the Danish wine side, it's actually about all of them. It's about go wider and go deeper and go faster. And sometimes I am in a one-horse race. There's nobody there to beat me. But definitely that was the idea from the beginning, to actually to make this like the big site in the Danish wine industry. But if you are a newcomer in an area with tough competition, of course you need to really decide on what way do I go here, right? And even if you're a one-man band, you also have to understand, how many resources do I have on my hands. But I would say, I'm a one-man band, and the processes that I have today, where you can actually have a great mix of the human and the AI together. I mean, I'm producing the same as a normal content team in the competing businesses. So I think resources is definitely an area where you can actually go in and understand how can you actually create processes which can make you even more efficient than teams where they're thinking more traditional.
That's a good point, definitely. Yeah, but as you mentioned, if you're competing with big guys, you have to really consider these things.
Yeah. And Koray also has a great example, right, with the Arctic water example
Yeah.
that he gave.
We'll mention that in the slide after this one as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe to summarize, like to become a topic authority in your subject matter, ideally you should aim to cover every aspect of a topic in a connected way without leaving any gaps, and also focus on creating highest quality content possible, ensuring the highest possible accuracy of every fact and declaration, highest relevance and responsiveness to any given query. Again, the goal is to lower that cost of retrieval, and Google is going to prioritize website with a topical map that offers lower retrieval costs with greater clarity and accuracy site-wide.
Excellent. So perfect. So let's
Yeah. Just to give an example of vastness, that's one of my personal projects. In the course section, I go vast into every type of workout program by goal, by training level, equipment, frequency, duration, body type, age, celebrity. Even I think it's even more like 1,000 pages there to be created, and in the outer section, all the possible exercises, from individual exercises to ones with a specific equipment for a specific muscle group, as well as matching. There's a query template situation there, matching the equipment plus the muscle group exercise. So, and that's close to 3,000 pages that could be created.
yeah, I've seen that. I've been an eyewitness to that topical map, Germans. That's a wild topical map.
And there you need some resources, right?
Oh yeah. So how far are you now with content production, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, the core is the core is done.
Okay.
And I'm ready for the launch in November.
All right, great.
Another example of the core ice case study about one water brand. It's all about depth, right? And I suggest you read this case study as well to see how, with just 27 articles within 1 month, major players like Healthline and WebMD, Medical News Today were outranked for a very specific health-related topic. Yeah, but just to say that this is just the start. Topical map is just the start. After that, you need to create content briefs, write content according to writing rules, and then continue configuring the content. If you want to learn more about this whole thing, topical map creation, you could also check out the 7-hour webinar that we did, where we discussed every step of the process. And yes, to answer one of the comments, we haven't created a topical map live there. As per se, we covered the whole process. But to create a topical map, I mean, depending on the size, it could take days, and if not months. I think Mohammed Hamid Khan, the host of this podcast, it took him 2-3 months to create one topical map. So it takes time. And of course, joining the holistic SEO community, if you're a fan of such way of doing SEO, it's quite different from traditional SEO, but I think personally, this is the future. Yeah.
I joined it. I think in July, and I really, this way of thinking as a Google engineer has really helped me in my understanding of SEO in general. So and of course the whole terminology, which is it's not something Koray has invented, but it's something that he has popularized. Is very useful because for far too long we've been sitting. The SEO school has been about inventing different terminology, which wasn't Google's language. So it makes so much sense actually to understand web pages as a Google engineer, which is what this course is actually enabling you to do.
And it's a rabbit hole. If you start learning, you realize how much you don't know, and you will continue learning every day. And that's how it is. It's every day is a school day.
Yeah, but that's SEO in a nutshell. Anyway, I mean, you always have to learn, but you also have to make sure that you're not a deer staring into the headlights. You have to do actionable stuff with the knowledge that you have. So that's always the challenge.
Yeah, and more resources, of course, like Christopher also mentioned about the course. It's a paid one, but there are plenty of free resources, from case studies on YouTube to slideshare presentations, and also to person who started, the first person who started writing about patents, Bill Slawski, SEO by the Seas. his website where he covered a lot great information about patents and dissecting those.
Yeah, and I think actually, was it Cora's blog post? Was it on Crawl? He did a blog post initially.
One of the first ones, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I remember I read that one, and of course it's a very heavy piece, but that's also a great introduction to this way of thinking.
Yep. And
Oh, yes.
yeah,
We already asked. We will send out slides after the session here. Germans, we made it to the end, and it was actually almost on time, 1:05. So without too much stress, and I can still see that we have plenty of people online. So if there are any questions out there, then please let's have them now. I mean, there's we have time to take some questions.
about my exercise name, I will reveal it later.
Yeah. That's but it would be really interesting to see what happens with your project. And you say that it's launching in November.
Yes, the content is ready and images are ready now. Just finalizing design elements of the website, and also need to figure out some of the branding elements and other media strategies.
Yeah. Okay. That's very exciting to see. I guess it will just be it will probably be like a clone of one of Corai's Google Search Console screenshots, I imagine. But
I very much hope so, but let's see. It'll take time.
Exactly. Anyway, I mean, I can tell you for my Danish wine project, of course I'm using my old habits to rank, but definitely Corai's framework has been a great add-on to build out what I was already doing. I would say, especially for the outer section, it has really helped me understanding more of what is the content that I should build, how I should connect it internally. I do rank number one for danske vine, which means Danish wines. So I'm there already. I'm on page one for dansk vin, which is Danish wine, the generic term. It will take. It probably also demand a lot of link building, I think, to get me there. I'm up against some tough competition, but anyway, it's the project has been underway for a year now, and I'm I'm pretty happy with the visibility of the project. So we have a question here from Lasse Germans. How often should you update your content blogs in order to keep momentum?
Recommendations every 6 months, but I would, do it every 6 to 9 months, right, depending on the resources available. The importance is that, after you have published a piece, it's always important to configure it going forward. In Google Search Console, you will get all the data for all the queries that the piece ranks for, and then according to those queries, according to prominence, occurrence, and impression count of those queries, you will have to reorder and continuously configure different sections of the content, see whether you're missing anything, covering that, but also reordering according to impressions. That's quite important.
And I like that you didn't say it depends, which was the easy answer. So 6 months could be a good threshold to look at old content.
Because search engines are always algorithms are changing, and the distances between topics are changing. So you have to 6 months, I think, is a good period to analyze, compare what has changed, and then make sure to cover that core network again in the best way possible, depending on how it changed.
Could you perhaps just elaborate a little bit on the Google core updates and topical maps, content publication, etc.? Because I think core updates are pretty critical to ranking, right?
Yeah, I think I could cite a recommendation also from Koray. He would always avoid publishing during the core algorithm update. That's not really the time when Google would use resources to look for new sources and new quality documents. So definitely after the update, that's where you would ideally publish your website if it's a new project. So that would be a recommendation around core updates. But as I mentioned, that during the core updates, understanding of topics changes over time to Google. Sometimes you might see that, okay, this topic deserves, let's say, 2 pages, but then after an update, you realize it must be only 1 page or vice versa. So analyzing the SERPs and then see how they change, that's quite important.
Yeah, because this should also be part of your publication date in your topical map. When is the going to roll? When is the next core update going to roll out? Because you can really screw it up for yourself if you hit it right in the middle of a core update.
I remember last year, October, September, when Google just kept on publishing update after an update after an update. I remember the community was crying.
Yeah, so there's a question from Ashraf. How many nodes needed to derank authority website like muscles and strength?
Many nodes, but depending on the source context, right? I see it as not necessarily a competitor in my case, according to what is going to be sold. So not that many nodes, but if you want to cover all work or programs, and that would be maybe the thing that you would sell. I mean, definitely a majority of what they are already covering, that would be important to process also on your website and make sure that each and every individual page is better structured, more relevant, more accurate, covering more queries, the whole query network for that given topic. So here I would say it depends on your competitors, but last time I checked, I think Muscle and Strength has more than 500 pages on programs.
Yeah. Could you just clarify nodes to everyone, Gemmas?
Yeah, nodes. So let's say in simple way, node is a page.
It's a page. Okay, great. All right, great. Then there's another question here from Lars regarding updating. I saw a recommendation to leave out a publication date so it won't look obsolete in a few years.
Yeah. So I would actually suggest leaving both publication date on your post as well as the update date. If the update is significant enough, just change the publication date. If it's an insignificant update, change the update date. Insignificant meaning it's a copy editing, maybe less than 5% has changed, but I wouldn't say it's gonna look obsolete, because like if you're really rewriting the whole article every 6-9 months, then you could justify changing the publication date if you changed more than, let's say, 25% of the content. So I wouldn't worry about that. If your CMS hopefully allows that, which it should, I think.
Yeah, I think also the Cora has a great example from an Australian optician, right, where they're actually using this method. Can you remember the name of that example?
Oscar Wiley, they are specialized in prescribed glasses. Oscar Wiley.
Oscar Wiley, so people can look it up and see how they're actually using it on their page. Great, we have another question here. So this is from Norman. So if a keyword has zero volume in tools, but that my competitors are getting traffic from that query, what's your thought on this? Because still many people are using traditional SEO and they're also targeting zero volume keywords.
I would analyze the SERP and see whether Google has enough level of documents and enough level of search demand to justify the creation of a specific search index. If that's the case, then create a page, regardless of what the tools say.
Maybe I remember wrong, but I think Cora said something about that sometimes we do need to have pages which actually have zero search volume in order to fulfill the topical map. Or maybe I'm paraphrasing, maybe it's somebody else who said that. I'm not going to say something which is wrong here.
I also heard that. Yeah.
Somebody has said that actually, and it shouldn't scare you from creating the page if you think it's necessary for your topical map. So we have one here. So Hassan is asking how to create the hierarchy of the topics of the core section and outer sections.
Hierarchy of topics. I would.
It could be like the first. You're talking about first level, second level, third level.
Okay, yeah. So
maybe I'm misunderstanding here.
We could cover both of them, right? So hierarchy in terms of the URL structure, let's say starting with the root, your, let's say, most likely central entity, and then on and on, right? Probably covering Yeah, it's so much dependent on the on the topic. It's very hard to say, but typically, well, generally speaking, I will prioritize my core section, always the and pages where I actually monetize something with them, and starting from the root, from the central entity, then defining it, and then putting everything where I actually sell something in my core section. But Hassan, you can just write me a private message. I think we're connected. If you have a specific question, then we can discuss that.
There's one question which is a little similar. You know, should we create core section as pages and outer sections as post articles?
It doesn't matter, like posts and pages. I think what you're referring to here, Noman, it's a WordPress thing. Page or post for WordPress, it depends how what the CMS allows you to do. But from Google's perspective, these are the same exact HTML post types, let's say. So you can put it as you want. I personally prefer, if I would use WordPress, I would just make everything as pages. It's going to be much simpler for me to put everything into a parent-child categorization type way. If you're expert coder, you could also just make everything like custom post types in WordPress and just do whatever you want. But that depends on your technical abilities as well.
Excellent. I mean, lots of great questions here, but I think we will cut the party short. It's been great to have you here today. I think we actually managed inside the hour to actually really get a lot highlighted about how to build a topical map. I learned some new stuff. I definitely have to look into the wiki graph. I think that's something on my side. We got some great questions out here. We're going to send out slides afterwards. But thank you everyone for joining us for this session, and hopefully you will join for another one next time that we're going to talk. And it could be that next time, Germans, maybe we should look at topical maps now that we've educated about what they are and how to build them. But anyway, if you can just hang on, and then we'll close down the session for